Hi friends, it's me, Gio, back with a new story. This one is called Dead or Alive, A Flight for Romance, and I hope you enjoy. Let's begin. The waiter sauntered over to my table, pushing a tired lock of curly copper hair behind his ear. He wore faded denim jeans, a loose-fitting gray button-down, and a pair of practical sneakers. His name tab read, The Rusty Cactus Griddle and Bar. Underneath was his name, Jeb. The place was a throwback to a simpler time in the world. No neon lights here, but LED lights that harkened back to vintage light bulbs, hung in bronze sconces on the beige wallpapered walls. The place had atmosphere. An old jukebox sung Olivia Newton-John's Have You Ever Been Mellow? Somewhere in back, the sizzling sound of beef frying on a grill complemented the static rush as a waitress filled a glass with Coca-Cola. Several spatulas clambered in the back, and the smell of potatoes frying in butter was divine. An old bell dinged, and a man placed a plate on a ledge yelling, Ruby Lou, orders up. 3 eggs scrambled, a side of hash, cottage cheese, and a cup of our divine smoky ember sauce. On the house. Shut up, Ed. You'll wake old Harold in booth number 7, a middle-aged waitress yelled back, putting a small notebook in her apron's pocket. I glanced at what I supposed was booth number 7. Some old man calmly read a newspaper while stirring his coffee. Setting down the spoon, he raised his cup. Ruby Lou refilled his cup before picking up the plate on the ledge. Above his booth was a framed in-glass promo poster for The Odd Jobs Dolly Parton Tour clear back in 1980, and was even signed by the Smoky Mountain songbird herself. Next to that was one for the Grateful Dead, also framed and signed. Next to that was one for Sterling Locke, also framed, glassed, and signed. I counted 50 such pictures. NASCAR drivers, bands, movie stars, politicians, even one of the presidents. Everybody who was anybody had been here. I was admiring a framed, glassed, and signed vintage poster about the Dead Man's Butte Annual Rodeo for Charity 1985 in the booth over, and smiling when he walked over. The waiter named Jeb leaned on one hip and gave me a chin lift. Hey, Ed, we're going up in the world. We don't often get high-class gym rats at the old Griddle. Too many carbs on the menu. Welcome to the Rusty Cactus, stranger, Jeb said, offering a worn smile and pulling out a pen and a notepad. Have you had a chance to look over the menu, darling? I nodded, liking the slim waist, the wiry arms, the way Jeb mindlessly rubbed the tattoo on his shoulder. It all looks good. What would you recommend? Jeb leaned close, smelling of coffee and French fries, and pointed at a description halfway down the left-hand page. Hell, most folks like the hearty rowdy breakfast platter, he offered. A plate overloaded with over-easy cowboy-style eggs, a savory sweet onion poblano sweet potato hash, with our smoky ember sauce, 2 spicy chipotle sausage links, and our signature Mojave Blueberry Breakfast Bars, created by Della Rose herself. The feast comes served with your choice of fresh squeezed orange juice or a steaming cup of coffee. I scanned the selection Jeb pointed at, looked at his handsome face, and replied, Roundup breakfast platter it is. Name's Wyatt Cole. I'll have a cup of coffee. What's your blend? To die for, hon. Desert Sunrise Blend, Jeb said. A bold medium dark roast with earthy undertones, a hint of smoky chocolate, and just a whisper of toasted pecans. It's served hot and fresh, just the way Della Rose envisioned her mornings at the Rusty Cactus. Who is Della Rose? Della Rose Carpenter, my great-grandmother, Jeb said. She started the Rusty Cactus back in 1965 and drops in to make sure we're doing things right. She lives with Mom, Pap, my sister Clarabelle, but we call her CB, and me. Mom's Ruby Lou over there, and Ed, my grandfather, is on stoves. Let's try the coffee, Mr. Carpenter. 1 creamer, 2 sugar. The jukebox skipped and paused. I'll be back in a minute, cute stuff. And the name's Holiday. Jeb Holiday. Jeb hurried to the back with my order, pausing next to the jukebox to give it a light kick. The music started right up. I'm glad I came here. Marcus would never come to a place like this. No neon glitz or fake smiles or people looking for quickie overnight adventures where they never have to remember names. Marcus would never come to Dead Man's Butte either. I checked my phone for any texts. Of course, one of them came from my ex, Marcus Brecht. My stomach ached. I hit delete without reading it. What had started as something sweet ended as something bitter. The sour taste in my mouth was only equaled by my mood. It had only been a month since we had broken up. The classic story. Boy meets boy. Boy falls in desperate love with boy. Boy learns his boyfriend had cheated on him with a stripper at somebody else's bachelor party. Boy yells at boyfriend, using every swear word he could find, and then dumps boyfriend. End of story. Boy moves back home to Dead Man's Butte to live with his parents. Well, he figures out what to do next. Jeb came back with a cup of coffee, a smile, and a plate with, here's one of our Mojave Blueberry Breakfast Bars and a little maple syrup to pour on it, guaranteed to make whatever is bothering you a little sweeter, he said, and stepped conspiratorially close. It doesn't take a pair of binoculars to see that you need to bend someone's ear. I'm on break in about an hour. Well, I do. Enjoy, hon. Are my problems written on my forehead? I never did have much of a poker face. Now the boy, that's me, is here at the rusty Cactus, drinking coffee, checking out the friendly waiter with the copper hair and an easygoing manner. So refreshing after Marcus. Admit it, I'm horny and pathetic, maybe a little lonely. That's my life. Jeb came back about 10 minutes later with my food, so hot it sizzled on the plate. He refilled my coffee with the jaunty, anything else, love? A smile tugged at my lips as he walked away. I straightened in my seat a little, my soul easing out of the blues. Jeb's presence had lifted my spirits. Maybe I'd ask him out for a drink later. I polished off my 3rd cup of coffee and the last of my eggs. My thoughts were interrupted when Jeb reappeared. He set down a plate piled high with a hash made from onion, poblano, and sweet potatoes, their smoky aroma curling up to meet my nose. A small cup filled with spicy-scented, smoky ember sauce joined his plate before he sat down opposite me. Are you new to the Butte, or is this the first time your boots have wandered these parts? Jeb wrestled with his copy curls, but they hung wherever they would. He pulled an old green bandana from his pocket and tied it about his head to keep his wild hair in place, with a gesture that spoke of long practice. His warm hometown drawl and his vibrant enthusiasm rivaled the desert itself, stirring a memory from my childhood I couldn't ignore. I dared not say this aloud, but his infectious cheerfulness mirrored Ralphie's, the Labrador who bound after me with as much joy as whenever we went exploring. When I went hiking in the desert with my friends, Ralphie trailed behind me, whether I was biking with him, frolicking in the park, or sitting still to snap pictures for the Dead Man's Butte Gazette. They posted almost all of them on their website. Even paid a middle school kid a decent wage. And they loved my dog. Friendliest dog you ever met. We were best friends. Did everything together. We were inseparable. I laughed. How could one man remind me of my childhood dog and make me fall in love at the same time? Stupid, right? Seeing my empty plate, Jeb nudged his plate forward with a flirty grin. Help yourself, good looking. It was my turn to smile. Give Ralphie copper hair and a green bandana, and he'd be Jeb. I relaxed around this stranger. I spared a chunk of sweet potato from his plate, testing his generosity. "Try the smoky ember sauce," he said, dipping his own sweet potato into the bowl of sauce. "I made it myself this morning. It's a slightly modified recipe from great-grandma Della Rosa's original, but I like it better." "How did you change it?" I asked, dipping my sweet potato into the sauce and tasting it. My mouth simmered with the sweetness, the flavors spreading like a slow ember. Then the warmth hit, making my lips tingle. "Watch out, it's a slow burn." Jeb let out a low chuckle, eyes sparkling as he caught my reaction. I swapped some of the old ingredients for modern ones. Jeb speared another sweet potato, dunking it effortlessly into the sauce. Grandma made a homemade sauce from red-hot chili peppers, vinegar, and salt, and simmered it for an hour. "A homemade Tabasco?" I replied. Jeb nodded. "It was too much work to grind the peppers, soak the peppers, and hover over the pot to make sure it didn't burn. I used Cholula hot sauce and a pinch of cayenne instead." He paused, savoring his bite. "She used regular sugar, but I used turbinado sugar mostly, or even coconut sugar when we can get it in bulk." "Anything else?" I asked. The flavors lingered, smoky and sweet, the perfect amount of heat giving it just enough punch. "She didn't have apple cider vinegar back then, just plain vinegar. The cider vinegar gives it a depth of flavor the original didn't have," he said, pride warming his tone. "It's a way of leaving a mark on your family's legacy," I said, this time dipping a poblano pepper into the sauce. There was something grounding and quietly thrilling about watching him share so much care for something as simple as a recipe. "If we get all serious, my uncle wants to close the Griddle and open a real restaurant down in Vegas." Jeb set his fork down with a heaviness that carried the weight of his words, his tone as grim as his expression. I could sense the tension in his words. It was more than just business. This was about identity and pride. I skewered an onion and a sweet potato, dipping them into the sauce, only for the onion to slide off as though agreeing with my unease. "You don't agree?" "No, siree, Bob," he said, shaking his head. "My family has owned this place for more than 60 years. It's our blood, sweat, and livelihood. Great-grandma Della Rose made something impossible happen. Back in the 60s, men expected women to stand behind the stove all day or vacuum in the house. Della Rose didn't fit that mold. This place was more than just a diner. It was her diner. She built it using guts and determination and a stubborn streak bigger than the Hoover Dam. The idea of a woman as boss back then ruffled a lot of feathers. It was a man's world, and people didn't like having a woman in charge. She showed them, and here we are today." One sweet potato remained. I gestured for Jeb to take it. He cut it in half and took the left piece, leaving the right for me. I took the right and dipped it in the last of the sauce. "We've talked about little old me. What about you?" Jeb said. "Discovered my boyfriend. His name's Marcus. Cheated on me at some guy's bachelor's party," I said. "It wasn't even with a guy, but one of the bridesmaids." It was too early to have a beer, but I sure wished for one. Something burned in my eyes. "Guess I'm not as sexy as I thought I was," I said, glancing at a signed poster of the Dixie Chicks. The bitterness overwhelmed my soul, and I stared into my coffee. "Hello, Mabel, and crap on a cracker," Jeb quipped. "Me and my dumb mouth only know how to talk about me. Where's my manners? You need a friend and a mite bit of cheering up." I need to stop thinking about my old coyote of an uncle. What say you and me and my closest friends catch the sunrise from the top of Dead Man's Butte while hang-gliding through God's gracious gift, guaranteed to chase those cowboys up in that beautiful head of yours away. Stick with me, and I'll show you what living really feels like. "Hang-gliding," I said. Jeb laid his hand on mine. The Wind Ninjas, that's us. We go out most Saturdays and catch some air. Tomorrow's Saturday. It's been so long since I had a decent date. My social life's on the endangered species list. What do you say, cutie of my heart? It was impossible to stay down with Jeb around. After a month of dark days and darker thoughts, maybe a little lightness was just what the doctor ordered. I leaned back, threw an arm over the chair, and smiled. Sign me up. I met Jeb and his friends, Tuck and Sammy, so early the sun hadn't even threatened to wake up. A monstrous yawn ripped out of me. Hello, 5 a.m. We left our cars at the rusty Cactus, and I climbed into Jeb's four-door, four-wheel drive pickup truck. The truck was equipped with a customized utility rack built to hold both hang gliders, now rolled in 24-foot-long cylinders that were longer than the truck itself. Welcome to my baby, Jeb said, a touch of pride in his voice. The cab smelled of oil and lemon cleaner and enchilada sauce. It's one rugged mother of a primer gray truck. She's a 2005 Chevrolet Silverado 1500 with a V8, 300 horsepower, 5.37 Vortec engine, with 5 forward gears under the hood and 1 back for dancing. It's really $295, Tuck whispered conspiratorially to me. Climbing into the seat in back of the driver's seat, he added, Jeb likes to exaggerate. Samantha, which they all called Sammy, clapped a hand over Tuck's mouth. You're making Jeb look bad in front of his new boyfriend, she sang. Tuck tilted his head a little. Jeb don't need any help in scaring them away. What's his record, 4 a month? Guys, Jeb warned, say nice things. We're in the front seat. Tuck straightened up and in a little kid's voice said, Jeb is a nice person. He would have continued, but Sammy hit him in the gut, rolling her eyes. Some boys never grow up. Tuck is bi, Jeb explained, and Sammy is an MTF in need of a serious attitude adjustment. Sammy slapped Jeb on the shoulder. Yeah, don't piss me off, pretty boy. Don't do that while I'm driving, Jeb yelled, laughing. In case you can't tell, I'm the pretty one of the group, Sammy explained, striking a pose. We all met at the Rainbow Palace and have been besties ever since. Rainbow Palace? I asked. A safe place for us LGBTQ folk, Sammy said. My parents flipped out when I came out. Jeb gripped the leather-wrapped gear shift like he was clasping hands with an old flame. Firm, strong, in control. With a glance at his phone, he hit play. The speakers in his battered truck cackled for a second before exploding into Bon Jovi's Wanted Dead or Alive. The opening riff surged through the air, raw and unapologetic, rattling the truck windows as if to challenge the silence of the open road. I leaned over the passenger seat, craning to check his playlist, but it didn't matter. The cabin had already erupted. Jeb, Tuck, and Sammy belted out the lyrics like karaoke veterans 6 beers in, unapologetically off-key but with twice the passion. When the iconic guitar solo hit, Tuck tossed his imaginary hair back and shredded on his invisible guitar, his face a mask of deep concentration, as though his air playing might summon the rock gods themselves. Sammy upped the antics, holding a chewed-up ballpoint pen to her lips, crooning Bon Jovi's Dead or Alive in a ridiculous falsetto opera, hands stretched dramatically toward the heavens. By the second chorus, the 3 of them were a symphony of chaos, Jeb pounding the steering wheel in rhythm, Tuck's guitar keeping perfect time with the beat, and Sammy crouched low, belting out the refrain with the gusto of someone auditioning for an all-star cover band. For a moment, they weren't just 3 guys packed into an aging pickup. Sammy's voice trailed off and she thrust the pen into my hand, her grin daring me to take center stage. With my best singing voice, I crooned the final Dead or Alive, along with John Bon Jovi. In that truck, with windows down and voices up, Jeb, Tuck, and Sammy weren't just 3 guys. They were rock legends, and maybe, just maybe, they were dead or alive. My throat burned from the effort, my heart pounded with the rhythm, and as I belted out the last note, I thought, yep, I just became a wind ninja. Only 10 miles to the top of the butte. If we could travel in straight lines. The truck jolted through the winding spaghetti dirt paths, narrow roads with steep drop-offs, and we mustn't forget the literally blind curves. These weren't one-lane roads. No, not by far. A half-lane at best. We reached the top of Dead Man's Butte with 30 minutes to dawn, and my knuckles so white from clutching the dusty dashboard, I swear I was about to tumble into the abyss below. Right after we stopped, Jeb, Sammy, and Tuck got to work putting the hang gliders together before the sunrise. The clouds held that pre-dawn golden glow, tinted with shades of auburn. The wind smelled with the freshness of the morning air. Enlivened by the wet smell of an early morning rain, the desert would bloom today, and for the next few days, new life springing up from the lifeless ground. Jeb, Tuck, and Sammy set up the 2 hang gliders, one with blue wings with a white stripe, the other one half yellow, half green. 24 feet long with a wingspan of 44 feet. They symbolized the wind ninjas' devotion to each other, their casual banter speaking to years of friendship. Within 20 minutes, the hang gliders were together, facing into the desert, far, far below. The gliders looked both majestic and fragile, like dragonflies poised to catch the wind. Silent, seeing all from above. Wind ninjas. Jeb, Tuck, and Sammy. "You sure you'll be okay driving the truck back?" Jeb asked Tuck. "Lost the toss. Besides, it gives me time to listen to some good music, not the crap you like to play." "Don't complain if I get your truck a little muddy," he snickered, emphasizing the word muddy. A thrill excited me. I had never done anything like this, but it was time for life to fly in a different direction. To the south sprawled the sleepy town of Dead Man's Butte, 10 miles away. We clinked cans of Coca-Cola together, toasting each other for the upcoming flight. "Wind ninjas forever," Jeb, Tuck, and Sammy yelled together. Here on top of the butte, updrafts stirred the air, perfect for gliding. Back in the silver mining days, some old drunk took one look at the butte and said, "It looks like a dead man lying down." And so it was called. The highest place in the area, its morning updrafts made for a perfect day. "You ready to fly the friendly skies?" Jeb asked with a wink and a flirty grin. "You'll buckle up on top. I'll ride the bottom so I can control the glider." "I'm the top, you're the bottom. Got it," I said, suddenly realizing that I was about to jump off the butte, hundreds of feet above the desert floor. The sudden fear felt like vultures fighting in my stomach. The desert floor dropped far below, its dizzying height enough to make me reconsider. "At first," Jeb said, all business, "then it kind of becomes a side-to-side thing. Just make sure you hold on to me. Before long, I'll have you screaming, love." I stared at him before we both chuckled. "Hold still," he said, strapping pads about my knees and elbows, and buckling a harness on me. He led me to the yellow and green glider and attached me to it. "Lay down," he ordered. I laid down in the harness as Jeb adjusted it about my waist. "That answers the age-old burning question. Jeb's a bottom," Tuck yelled, tightening one last bolt. Once again, Sammy struck a pose, leaning far over her left hip, arms folded indignantly in front. She deliberately pouted as she said, "Any other bedroom tips you want to share, mon garçon sexy?" Jeb accidentally placed his hand on mine as he checked the straps holding me in place. The touch triggered a second of heat, of passion, hinting of the way things could be. I hung from the harness about 2 feet off the ground, the perfect view of Jeb's legs. Nice, muscled just right, lightly hairy. I was about to enjoy myself. Jeb hadn't even noticed me staring at him. "I meant the hang glider harness, you goofballs." He paused to wink at me as if to suggest something might happen later. In private. "Tuck and Sammy, good thing you're my best friends and I like you, but y'all have dirty minds. How could you even think I'd play the Gucci-Gucci-do with somebody I've barely met?" "We are so sorry," Sammy said with mock innocence, blowing us a kiss. "Tell you what," Tuck said, holding back a smile. "We'll get you and Wyatt a bottle of that whiskey you like. Crown Royal Reserve. A special whiskey for a special night." "That's all this romance is gonna last," Sammy yelled. "Face it, Jeb. All the pretty boys get tired of you." "Don't listen to them, Wyatt. I'll have you know I can do long term," Jeb said, grinning. "Wave goodbye to any hopes of having a picket fence and a little garden out back, Wyatt," Sammy hollered with a grin. "It's Jeb, kiss the boys and make him cry. Holiday coming through." "It's the Grim Weeper himself," Tuck yelled. "Jeb plays catch and release," Sammy yelled. "Catches the love and releases them so he can catch the next one." Jeb looked back with a look of mock hurt, eyebrows shooting up, mouth open wide with shock, his hand covering his hurting heart. "Mama raised a go-to church God-fearing kind of a boy. Don't know what y'all are talking about. I'm a virgin." I leaned over from my harness, leered up at Jeb, and wickedly said, "Not when I get done with you, pretty boy." I winked. That set the entire gang into hysterics, Sammy doubling over with the loudest laughter, Tuck wiping his eyes, Jeb shaking his reddened face, muttering, "I should have slept in." But he was laughing as he said it. "Yep, I'm a wind ninja." Jeb double-checked my harness, and then the tension in the yellow and green fabric. "We're good," he said, strapping into his own harness. "Note the wheels. We'll land like an airplane in Railroad Junction Park." "That's 10 miles away?" I panicked. "Are we going to walk there?" "Nope," Tuck and Sammy said together, walking around the hang glider, making one last safety check. Tuck activated a GoPro camera, zooming in on Jeb and me. A pilot catches thermal drafts to keep flying. 10 miles is nothing. World record is 474 miles. They were in the air for 11 hours. "That's insane," I said, wondering what I was in for. "That's like flying from Vegas to Salt Lake City." Sammy gave me a huge grin and said, "The wind ninjas are insane." "Wind ninjas forever," Jeb, Tuck, and Sammy screamed. "Smile for YouTube, sweet stuff," Jeb said, laying down in his harness and tightening the straps. Tuck handed us both helmets and double-checked our harness. Satisfied, he gave Sammy a thumbs up. "Ready? 1, 2, 3, both Sammy and Tuck screamed. "Hold on to your boxers. It's time to get insane," Jeb yelled as Tuck and Sammy pushed us off the edge. Good thing my stomach didn't come along. The ground dropped below us, really far below us, stretching farther and farther into the void below. Oh, God! My stomach clenched with a thrill, the kind that makes you feel alive and small all at once. Jeb caught an updraft and leaned forward into the control bar. The hang glider's nose tipped upward, and suddenly we were shooting into the sky, weightless, carried by a warm thermal. Tuck and Sammy whooped in excitement, their shouts a mix of joy and disbelief. Tuck helped Sammy buckle into the harness of the blue hang glider and helped her launch, its striped wings catching the sunlight like a beacon. Sammy yelled "Cowabunga" as she caught an updraft, screaming all the way. In that moment, we weren't just pilots. We were two vibrant kites, triangular and bold, drifting high above the world. The desert below shimmered like an endless mirage, and I felt an electric current of connection and awe, not only for the adventure, but for the people who made it worth sharing. "Ladies and gentlemen, may I present the Wind Ninjas," Jeb shouted. The sun crested the horizon, bathing the desert in morning gold. A fresh breeze warmed us as we flew with the light, with the wind. Jeb yelled, filled with joy. I joined him, the two of us screaming as one. Sammy yelled from her hang glider. I gripped Jeb's solid shoulders, feeling his strength flow through him as he tilted the control bar and banked us to the left. Light danced on the yellow fabric above, illuminating the intense joy in his face. For once, he was silent. No clever remarks, no laughter, just Jeb in his element, the wind carrying him to a rare and speechless peace. I pulled as close to him as the harness would allow me, seeking the comfort of his warmth against the dry, rushing air. The wind tugged at my hair, sharp and playful, as I caught the faint citrus tang of his copper locks tied back with a green bandana. His powerful hand steadied the control bar with the assurance of someone born to the sky. I gazed at his serene face, calm and unyielding, mirroring the vast, untamed heavens around us. The sunlight softened, and the clouds transformed into tall, puffy wisps of cotton that framed the pale blue expanse. The wind sang its constant tune, threading around us like a whisper, wrapping us in the stillness of this perfect moment. In that instant, the world fell away, leaving only two of us suspended in a quiet freedom that felt eternal. I inhaled Jeb's subtle cologne, something sporty and fun, invigorating like the man himself. The scent mingled with the dry wind rushing past us, carrying the thrill of the skies. My heart raced as we caught another updraft, the hang glider surging higher, soaring even higher from the ground, so far below. The world below blurred into a patchwork of desert hues, vast and untouchable. Save for the wind's relentless whistle, the quiet invited a rare moment of peace, a thrill that coursed through me like electricity. Grinning, I tightened my hold on Jeb, grateful for his nearness and the way he made me feel alive. His copper hair glinted in the sunlight, and his powerful hands gripped the control bar with effortless precision. Turning his head so I could hear him above the wind, Jeb shouted, "Time to take control." His eyes sparkled with anticipation, wide and alive. "Place your hands on the bar next to mine." I hesitated, the weight of the moment pressing against me, but his confidence was contagious. Shifting in my harness, I moved closer until we were side by side. Slowly, I placed my hands on the control bar, feeling the pulse of the glider's movement beneath my fingertips. The wind roared its approval, and for the first time, I felt the sky's power in my hands. "You control it by shifting weight," he shouted, placing his hands next to mine, touching them. My breath quickened. The control bar shivered with the wind's flow, the turbulence shaking us that moment. "Yee-haw," Jeb yelled, and let go. Only my hands remained on the control bar. I froze, just short of a panic. "What do I do?" I yelled. "Lean right," Jeb yelled back over the force of the wind. I leaned in, hands raising the bar to the right. The hang glider tilted to the right, banking in the air. Jeb smiled at me, pointing toward Dead Man's Butte. "Take it easy, cowboy. We'll be heading that way eventually, but let's take this baby on our road trip." The air around us was alive, carrying whispers of the desert below. As we soared closer to Dead Man's Butte, its rugged silhouette loomed, carved by time and painted with warm hues of amber and ochre. The jagged cliffs rose defiantly from the earth, their edges softened only by the drifting shadows of clouds. From this height, the land stretched endlessly, a tapestry of sunlit rock and winding trails etched into the sand. The glider swayed gently, and I felt the warm desert wind against my cheeks, dry yet somehow soothing. It carried faint, earthy scents, cactus blooms, baked stone, and the faint memory of rain long gone. The updrafts surged beneath us, cradling the glider with a delicate yet commanding force, as though the sky itself was guiding our journey. The clouds above transformed into soft white mounds, their edges glowing as sunlight streamed through them. They seemed close enough to touch, though they dissolved into nothingness with every twirl and tilt of our nylon wings. Below, the desert shimmered under the midday sun, its heat waves creating a mirage-like dance across the horizon. The contrast between the vast stillness of the landscape and the boundless energy of the sky was staggering. As Jeb smiled, carefree and radiant, the world felt timeless, just us and the heavens, intertwined with a freedom so absolute it almost stole my breath. Sammy in her blue striped glider wove playful path through the air, her wingtips slicing close to a wisp of cloud. We, the nylon birds, danced above the earth in a silent symphony, bound by the simple joy of being alive in this moment. All too soon, the town of Dead Man's Butte rose beneath us, marking the end of our skybound journey. Below, Railroad Junction Park emerged, our landing spot. Jeb seized control, guiding us as I floated just above him, weightless. Houses became toys, people like ants scurrying beside them. Sammy spiraled down first, lining up with the park, her blue glider slicing the air before landing with precision. Cheers erupted from the park goers, their claps punctuating the calm. Tuck darted in to help her unbuckle, dragging the glider off to clear the way. He waved an orange flag at us, his signal sharp and commanding. Our turn. We spiraled downward, town sounds clawing their way into my ears, truck engines, honking horns, the hum of normalcy reasserting itself. I clung to Jeb's waist, stabilizing myself as the ground hurtled closer. Sammy's voice pierced the wind, unintelligible yet jubilant, and she leaped with excitement. A group of baseball players stood at one end of the park, watching us descend. We must have interrupted their game. "Here we go," Jeb bellowed. I whooped my joy, echoing his earlier phrase, "Yee-haw." The wheels kissed the earth, the grass a blur just inches below us. Breathless, I collapsed in my harness. My soul surged with euphoria, soaring higher than any flight. This man didn't just make me feel alive. He made me feel more than alive. My grin stretched so wide it could engulf one of Gordon's gourmet nuclear cholesterol bombs in a single bite. Just as the euphoria settled, I couldn't help but wonder what came next. Could the thrill of today be enough? Or was there more to uncover with Jeb? Laying side by side in our harnesses, I turned to him, my gaze steady, feeling ready for whatever was to come. And when Jeb met my eyes, his softened smile seemed to carry the promise of something even bigger. "Our grand adventure is just beginning, love," he said, his voice tinged with wistfulness, carrying the weight of something serious, dead or alive kind of serious. "How about grabbing grub and catching the sunset on top of the butte tonight?" Playing along, I mock protested. "But it will be dark. How will we survive those trails? We'll fall off the butte." "It's too late," he whispered, his lips brushing my hair. "I've already fallen, sweetness. I'll bring the sleeping bag so we can stay warm. Thank you for joining me, my friends. I appreciate it. I'm Gio, the author and narrator of this piece, and I want to give a special thanks to Microsoft Copilot for helping me edit and for coming up with all the pictures. Thanks, buddy. As to my health, thank you guys for all your prayers and for everything. You don't know how grateful I am. I have to go in for surgery this coming week, so I was trying really hard to get this out before then. I'll see you guys when I get back. Peace, everyone. I love you all.